Good afternoon, you two people. Well, I'm here again. Today I am joined by a friend from overseas, from Ireland, which isn't a part of England, as lots of English people think. It's actually a different country. And this person is called Ronan. He's an expert on folklore and also Forteana. So he's going to talk to you a little bit about his interest in folklore. And here we are.
Well, now, folklore is the science of what people believe, but what has not been necessarily accepted by science, or the strange customs that they may have that seem to linger from another day. I've been particularly interested in cryptozoology, which is the study of the folklore relating to made-up animals, or animals that science doesn't credit with existing. And therefore, I've always been on the trail, so to speak, of such creatures. I generally go on the trail from a pile of books because I find that far less onerous than going out into a jungle and going up trails and getting bitten by insects and swallowed by serpents and other such things. I've written a number of books on the subject and on other subjects as well. For example, I've recently produced a book on the Holy Grail, which is a myth that has always interested me. The Arthurian mythos generally has, but the Grail sequence is particularly interesting and always has been. And in that, it gives every idea that people have had about what the Grail might have been and why they were questing after it. It can be applied to modern life, if you like. We all seek our own grails, we all have our own goals. Unfortunately, these days, too many people's own goals are possessions and money, but there you are. I may have got the possessions and a large number of books, but the money is still eluding me. I once thought of becoming a bank robber, but with my arthritic knee, I felt I couldn't make a getaway fast enough. So, my major interest, as I say, is the study of things that are not accepted by science, but are not necessarily unscientific. There is, unfortunately, a tendency in the community of scientists, which is getting a little better, but it tends to say that if something is not very easily proven, you don't believe in it. For example, scientists don't believe in animals such as the yeti simply because they've never had a yeti to chop up in a laboratory. Certainly a live yeti would object to being chopped up in a laboratory fairly fiercely, I suspect, but a dead yeti would be a different matter. There has always been a certain amount of justifiable caution in the scientific community. There are many hoaxes and practical jokes, and scientists don't want to be taken in by them. There's the well-known story of the German scientist who kept digging up ancient ruins which were being planted by his students the previous night. When he eventually found that one of them was supposed to be a letter from God, he realized he had been fooled. But scientists have to show a certain amount of caution, but unless they have a laboratory specimen insofar as animals are concerned, well, they don't really reckon much to them. We all have a vision of what is possible. Some people would be surprised at the things scientists actually accept. Physicists these days are saying that there might be more than one dimension. This doesn't occur to many humans. It's not the sort of thing that's talked about over the bar. Scientists are taking a more tolerant view of the possibility there may be alien life, but they prefer to think it's alien life far away. In other words, if it's in several distant galaxies, they don't mind, but if you say it might be coming a little closer in a UFO, they immediately become defensive. Again, this is to some extent justified, because there are people who will look up and see what they term UFOs, only to discover they're aeroplanes because these people happen to live near the airport. But I like investigating reports of anything that doesn't sit in with the present worldview, the present scheme of the possible. There's a certain arrogance about people. People think they know everything. There's an old rhyme in the Wind in the Willows, if I remember correctly, in which it says the clever men at Oxford know all there is to be knowed, but they don't. And even they would be the first to admit they don't. But they would suggest that they have a generally good idea of where the borders of the possible lie, and that anything beyond that general idea is to be scoffed at, and indeed can even affect their promotion if they advocate it. For example, Jim Mars, who is sure people were being abducted by UFOs, is supposed, according to rumour, to have suffered in his career as a result because he was a university lecturer and professor. I think, would that be enough?
That's very good, thank you very much, yes. Yes.
I wasn't quite sure how long to go on.
Yes, that's good, yes. You're very, very good. I want to ask you one question before you leave. Is what's the most common folkloric creature that you've that has been sighted around the British Isles?
Well, now, if you're dealing with pure folklore, it would be the Kelpie-type horse that somebody finds out in a field, jumps on the back of, and it sets off at a gallop for the nearest river, and that's you because you drown in it.
Oh.
That is very much a creature of folklore. The most well-known mystery animal, of course, is the Loch Ness Monster.
Yes.
But the Loch Ness Monster, there are many things in Loch Ness that can be mistaken for a monster because it's a very big loch. I'm told you could fit the entire population of the world into it 4 times over.
Really?
Yes. And there may be something in it that is of a monstrous nature, but there are many things in it that could be mistaken for a monster as well.
I'm thinking more of things like Cornish pixies. And,
yes. Well, now, it's surprising that what you might call, under an umbrella term, the fairy folk, although you're dealing with different species, have been viewed by many sort of trustworthy people over the centuries. Nobody has been able to bring a Cornish pixie into a laboratory for scientists to dissect, but just because nobody's managed to catch one doesn't mean they're not there. However, if they are there, I suspect that they vibrate at a different rate from us, so they can only be seen in certain circumstances at certain times.
When they want to be seen.
That's why you never see a roadside pixie that's been run over. There are a couple of rather good books on the subject dealing with supposed sightings, but they're rather obscure. You have to dig a bit to get them. But if you have a good look on Amazon, you'll be able to find them.
Okay.
Then there are the less reliable books by people who, having taken large quantities of drugs, not alone see fairies, but see pink elephants and other such creatures as well.
If one of my listeners would like to find your books, how would they go about finding them?
The simplest way is to look them up on Amazon. They're all available on Amazon at present. The book depository stocks them as well. If you happen to be in France, you'll find they're on Amazon France. And in America and Canada, they're on the Amazon USA and Canada. So, I mean, they're easily accessible. Back in the old days, you had to find a bookshop which either stocked them or would order them for you, and it was much more difficult to locate a certain title.
Right, that's very good. Thank you very much. Right, there we go. Thank you. And we'll wait for our next person. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.